Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Conversations with Chris. Today, I'm joined by former Auburn Tigers running back, Pro Bowler, and second overall selection in 2005 NFL Draft, Ronnie Brown. Ronnie, thank you for joining us. So first off, you had a 9-year NFL career, which is a lot more than any of us could say without a doubt, and that is very, very impressive. So I would just like to ask, how are you able to keep what is it like having to maintain that longevity, not only physically but mentally for all those years?
When we start playing sports, it becomes an escape. We want to enjoy our buddies. We want to enjoy time with our friends and the competitive spirit of it. And then so the higher each level goes, the stakes get higher. And then the more it becomes business. And so coming from communities where a lot of us come from, myself, when I speak, I usually tend to share from experience. There was a lot of things that I didn't know about the business side. And so it went from being fun to being an opportunity to being a job to where I had responsibilities and it being a business. And so understanding that, it kind of changes the magnitude of it a little bit.
How did mentorship affect your career, and having, say, like a mentor to look up to in the locker room, or say you taking a younger guy under his wing, being such a prolific player that you were, how is that able to really direct your career?
So, I think me being drafted to the Miami Dolphins, being the second overall pick, it was vital to my growth and development. One, because the team was a little bit older when I got there. And so we had some veteran guys who had had a lot of success on the professional level, been to multiple Pro Bowls, all pros, and all of these things. And so to being in locker room with those type of guys, I'm the type of person that I like to watch, people. I'm not really vocal a lot. And so I never really had an actual mentor, but coming into a team with guys like Jason Taylor, Zach Thomas, Junior Seau, being able to watch guys do it at a high level. And each guy was totally different. Like Jason Taylor was so involved in the community. You got Junior Seau was a people person, and then Zach Thomas was the ultimate professional. And so being able to see guys operate in that sense, it helped me a lot, and so just trying to emulate those guys and what they did, it kind of helped shape me as a player and how I wanted to approach, things outside of the sports game.
How were you able to really, being the second overall pick and and obviously with being a second overall pick comes a lot of pressure, but being able to just kind of listen in, and how are you able to really deal with all the stuff that was coming at you from the media being so hyped coming into the draft? And how are you able to really block out some of that, negative noise and stuff like that, and really just focus on your craft?
Coming from a small town in, little Cartersville, little Northwest Georgia, there was so much that I didn't know, especially being drafted to Miami. And so being able to handle all of those things, it was like drinking through a fire hose. It's like, one, how do I represent as the number 2 overall pick? What are the expectations for my play? What should I be doing as a player? How do I handle myself accordingly, in Miami with so many distractions? Then you add the family element, being drafted, and, I think the financial change that comes along with that. There's so many things to juggle all at once. And you're trying to be a professional athlete. You're trying to perform the best of your ability. The game that you love, that was an opportunity, that creating this experience now becomes the job, and so, trying to juggle all of that stuff and really trying to figure out how to prioritize things while still enjoying it, it becomes difficult. And when I talk to a lot of younger athletes, I tell guys, Benjamin Franklin said is, failing to prepare is preparing to fail. And so you have to understand how to do that, but you're learning in the moment.
How important was it to balance, off the field activities, having a social life, being able to go out, just do what you want, and and then having to go from that to be, going back to your professional athletic career?
Yeah. So, I mean, just to be honest, I don't really believe in balance, and I think, people say everything in moderation, even moderation, right? And so it's understanding how to prioritize. Like when it's time to play sports, you focus on that. That's your main focus. But when it's time to relax, when it's time to get away from it, you can also enjoy things to be that escape, the other things that you enjoy doing, because it's so hard to be on. And like you said, now with the access to the cameras and people walking around, you pretty much got to be on, especially when you're in the public eye at 24/7, because somebody's watching. And so, just understanding and realizing like, okay, I need to figure out how to prioritize, what I need to in the moment. If it's family time, I need to prioritize family time, put the phone down, escape from the game, escape from, my business, or escape from what I'm doing. But when it's time to do business, when it's time to be a professional athlete, then that's the priority, and understanding this takes precedent over everything else that I'm doing.
So switching gears here. So you obviously were able to become a financial advisor after your NFL career. So how important was it to start preparing for after the NFL? Like did that start happening during your career? Were you thinking about that, like as you were still an NFL player, or did that not really occur, so much until after you decided, to call it quits? When did those thoughts start coming into your head, and how were you able to transition so smoothly?
I would recommend to a lot of collegiate athletes now, man, go print you up some business cards, get your email, get your phone number, and being able to hand it out when you meet people, especially in collegiate sports, because the likelihood of you making it professional isn't it's slim, and it's not impossible, but at least the reality of it. And so you start printing up your business cards, taking business cards, forming relationships with people. I think that would be a huge part to this, of understanding how to handle yourself as a businessman. And so, when I started this, I graduated in communications. I thought I wanted to do broadcasting, but just through the trajectory of my career, I realized in the moment of being drafted where I was, how much I didn't know about the financial situation, how about my financial picture. And I wanted to learn, I wanted to acquire the information. And just by me chasing that education, that information, it kind of took me down this road to end up here, because I realized not only for myself, there's so many other individuals that have the same struggle, who don't know this, who don't have credible individuals in their corner to assist them. And unfortunately, a lot of athletes who don't have the business acumen, who don't come from financially stable communities or backgrounds, you can be taken advantage of, because there's a lot of things that you don't know. And so trying to prevent those things from happening, it feels like my purpose.
So you talked about NIL deals and obviously educating these young athletes about what they're getting into, giving these teenagers, a bunch of money. Like we saw Bryce Young getting $1 million contract at 18, just coming out of high school, before even starting a game at Alabama, just being the number one recruit. All that hype coming in is crazy. But so first of all, would you have liked to have that when you were around, being such, like phenomenal college player, obviously getting that second overall pick hype? I guess that would, help entice companies as well. And also, how do you feel about being able to see these athletes who are so young, like get all this money, and how they conduct themselves once they get it?
Yeah, so I mean, I think I'm all for it. And I think there needs to be a structure and a strategy around it, of course. Um, but I think it can be a great thing if done the right way. It's introducing young men and young women into the fact of being businessmen and businesswomen, and being able to capitalize off of the opportunities they've been awarded through their hard work, and doing the things the right way up until this point. And so it's a good thing. But it also has to be, like I said, some structure. I like to see, like I said, young men and women who may not have an opportunity to play sports beyond college, they can get a chance to build up a resume, build up a network, creating some opportunities for themselves. But even beyond that, from a monetary perspective, you talk about the guys that can capitalize off of it. It's kind of meaningless if you get the money, but you have no idea what to do with it. And so understanding that, it's like, okay, well, now that I'm getting the money, I've received the money, what do I do with it? And so many guys may not have a system or a mentor around them to help them with that part of it. And so, I think that's where it can become dangerous or harmful, because now you start to develop bad habits at an earlier age. And you assume, it's like, oh, well, this is easy to just make money. And so you don't understand the value of money, or you tend to underappreciate how tough it is to get it. And so just understanding those things, is a part of the challenge, and putting, a system around it to where you can protect the athletes, they can protect themselves a lot of times from themselves.
I was reading about for the class of 2023, some quarterback, he committed to Tennessee, and then they looked at it and he's getting paid $8 million by his freshman year, which is kind of insane. At the end of the day, I have no idea, but apparently they're tied in with the school, and that type of thing, where they can influence your decision by getting you to sign these deals, and all you have to do is commit to the school. It's really it's at the end of the day, it's kind of like free agency for high schoolers, and it's really interesting to see how it's going to end up playing out, because like you said, some of these kids might not be going into the best situations for them to develop to the best of their ability. So
right. Yeah, and it's in the infancy stages too. I'm like, man, this is just the beginning of it. And so, it's a free for all right now at the moment, and I get it, coming from a community where I didn't have much growing up. It's easy to be tempted to say, okay, well, whoever's going to give me the most money, I'm going to go and make sure that I do that, especially if I don't have an opportunity to go to the next level. And so not being able to see beyond, the near term versus thinking long term, may affect some kids in a few years, and we'll kind of see, and you look back in a few years and see the effects of, how the infancy part of it affected some of the long-term decisions. And I think we're a few years away from that, but just being cautious about it and not getting caught up in, oh, because I can, I will. And just understanding how to responsibly approach this. And, it's like, hey, man, if this sports thing don't work out, are you at a school, college, university that you would be happy to graduate from, that you're comfortable with, and it'd be a great experience outside of that?
You could have any life lessons that you learned from being a professional athlete, would you mind just briefly touching on that and what it was really like,
Yeah. So, through sport, I learned a lot about life, life skills. It prepared me for, how to handle myself, how to believe in myself, how to challenge myself, how to overcome adversity, how to be on a team, how to, accentuate my positives, how to work on my weaknesses, how to understand those things. So it was so many life lessons that I learned through sport. I would encourage, all young men and young women to play sports at least through high school, because you learn so much. And the other thing, like I said earlier, it awarded me the opportunity to meet a lot of people that I wouldn't have otherwise met, and do a lot of things that I wouldn't have otherwise had the opportunity to experience without playing sports. And so, I'm so grateful for that opportunity. But it just taught me so much about life, the hard work, the dedication, the understanding who you are, understanding your role, how to play your role, how to develop as a person in that role. Like I mentioned, just a second ago, is, how to, challenge yourself mentally, physically, emotionally, and overcome all of that stuff, how to deal with success, how to deal with failures.
Well, thank you. Thank you for doing this interview. Thank you for joining us and giving your insight. Obviously, a very unique insight. So, Ronnie Brown, former Auburn Tiger and Pro Bowl running back. So, thank you so much for joining us.
Appreciate it, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.